It's 11:59 at Gun Owners Radio, and this is the Penn Patriot, music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I've got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, and another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind American lines, this is your song.
Gun Owners Radio. Welcome, everybody. We make activism easy. It is June the 22nd, 2025. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to Gun Owners Radio. We do this for the Second Amendment. We're trying to change the culture. We're trying to change the laws. We want to make sure that we give you something to do that's meaningful, that is effective, that will help create the country, the state, and the neighborhood that you want to live in as a Second Amendment activist. So that's why we do this. The way you can help us, like, subscribe, comment, but especially subscribe to our YouTube channel and tell everybody you know about Gun Owners Radio.
All right, so what's on today's show? All kinds of fun. Candidate for State Senate, Kristie Bruce Lane. We also talk about everyone's favorite anti-gunner, David Hogg. And we are witnessing the death of the NFA. And much more. Lawsuits and news that you need to know. So Gun Owners Radio comes to you from a studio here at Discount Gun Mart. When was the last time that you visited DGM? Check out everything they've got today. Look at their website, come in person. Website is discountgunmart.com. Locations are on Marina as well as over in Santee. While you're out on the internet, go to our website as well at gunownersradio.com and sign up to get our emails so that you know what's happening in the Second Amendment community.
There you go. Okay, one thing I want to point out is CGF, California Gun Rights Foundation, which is an awesome 501c3. They file all kinds of lawsuits. They've been around for forever. We had their founder, Gene Hoffman, on just a couple of weeks ago talking about the origin, and he did a phenomenal job. I'm getting a lot of positive feedback on that interview with Gene. I thought it went really, really well. But here's how you can help CGF, and here's how you can help do Second Amendment stuff or help them do Second Amendment stuff. Go to cagunrights.org, cagunrights.org/KS7. This month, the month of June, they're doing a sweepstakes. And if you donate, if you make a donation to them, then you have a chance of winning a Kel-Tec KS7. There it is, win a Kel-Tec KS7. Cool shotgun. I think it's pretty cool. And it helps CGF do what they need to do in order to help us protect and restore the Second Amendment. So definitely do that. So anyway. Alicia, how are you? Are you going to join? Are you going to try to enter to win a KS7?
I might. I don't have a bullpup shotgun just yet, so I might.
There's your opportunity. You want to hear something funny?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So I'm looking around. This has nothing to do with nothing, but I know it's going to make you laugh.
It's not hard.
I'm looking around online, and somebody was talking about a Facebook group that they really liked, okay? And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, the Facebook group is called the Monopoly Facebook group? Like, what the hell is Monopoly? You know what I mean? Like, I'm sitting there going, I got to learn, like, some new, preference or group or subculture or whatever. The Monopoly group, like the Monopoly, because like polyamorous is like the new thing where, they have like a boyfriend and a girlfriend and another boyfriend and a girlfriend. They have all kinds of different relationships, whatever. Fine, do your thing, right? But now it's like a thing, this poly. So I'm like, what is Monopoly? Is Monopoly like you're single, you're mono, but you want more than one? I mean, what the hell is Monopoly? So I get all charged up in my head, I get all grumpy, like back in my day, right? And then I figured out that it was a group dedicated to the board game Monopoly. It's not Monopoly. It was Monopoly. And this person was talking about what a great group this was because they talk about Monopoly, and then I guess there's some kind of virtual Monopoly or whatever. And I'm just like... That's what happens when you've lived in California your entire adult life.
Right.
They just,
too funny.
Anyway, I thought that would make you laugh.
That's funny.
Okay, so let's get back. Was that?
Good.
All right.
Sorry.
Let's get back to gun stuff, everybody. Couple of cool things here. Okay, so some good news, some not so good news. So the CCW changes that are coming up, and some of these affect just San Diego. Some of them affect everybody. And actually, we talked a little bit about some of the CCW delays, and I spoke with somebody who chooses not to. He doesn't want me to say who. He doesn't want me to out him, but he's somebody that used to work for a CCW division for a sheriff's department.
You don't know what county, or not disclosing?
Yeah, they don't need to
Okay.
disclose. But he's legit. I've known the guy for years, and he's totally great. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But before I do, let's get into some of the little things. SB2, one of the requirements, everybody, the big thing about SB2 is that it stops you from carrying everywhere outside of your home, right? That's what,
Right.
That's the big thing. But there are little pieces of SB2 that are little landmines that are starting to pop up and really screw things up. One of them is that it is requiring a live scan for renewal. So basically, when you go in for a CCW renewal, they actually do a full-on live scan of
So
you.
it's not just the class and paying the fee. Now you're going to have to throw another $100 at a live scan.
Yeah.
Okay.
About I think it's I don't know if it's a full $100, but it's
It
like
depends where you go.
depends on where you go.
Yeah.
But the San Diego Sheriff's Department says that this will start on September 1st, 2026. September 1st, 2026. So not this year, not this September, but next September. And it sounds like it's exactly what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to go, take a class, and then you're also going to have to go to a place that offers a live scan. They don't do it. The Sheriff's Department isn't going to do it. They want you to submit a live, proof that you've done a live scan, as well as a passport picture.
Other states have done that.
Other states have done it.
Arizona, Florida. Okay.
But it's just more onerous, right? More expensive for renewals. So
Right.
starting September 1st, 2026, live scans for renewals, and the responsibility for getting a live scan is yours. They haven't even announced this yet. You heard it here first.
Hot off the press.
Another thing I've learned from the Sheriff's Department is renewals. You can now start renewals 90 days prior to expiration. 90 days. So as early as 90 days prior. So if you expire on January 1st, which nobody expires on January 1st because that's a holiday. But let's just say you expire on January 1st, then you can start, what is that? No, wait. October 1st is when you can actually start your renewal. 90 days prior.
Submitting it through the sheriff's, yes. But you can, if you really wanted to really edge it as quick, as far ahead as possible, the certificate that you receive from your renewal class is valid for 6 months.
Yeah.
So in theory, not that I would recommend ever pushing it because then you just have a short overlap, but you could really, in theory, then take your renewal 9 months before you expire. Wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Because then you'd be cutting that, that
Yeah.
eligible 90-day.
I know, you'd just be in a
submit.
constant
Right.
state of renewal.
Yeah, right.
But
Right.
and to be clear, that 90-day thing that's when you can actually start. That's when you can go on
Submit.
CCW Pro.
Yeah.
So before that, you can actually take your class. You can get you'll have to get your live scan eventually, starting in 2026 September. So you get all your package together, and then 90 days prior you can submit it, and that's going to just about guarantee you're not going to
Expire?
You're not going to
Like I did?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not going to have to walk around unarmed because
Right.
So that's the second thing. Third thing is they just opened up 100 new slots
This is amazing.
per month. 100 new slots per month. So that means that they have a certain number of slots where you can get your application, or whether you're existing or it's a renewal or whether it's an initial. They are now adding 100 slots, and they're going to add even more. So this is just right now they're adding an additional 100 slots.
Are they still just working CCW on Mondays, or have they expanded to different? Is it just that still one day?
They don't. No, it's
Okay.
They claim they never really were just on Mondays either. But we don't need to get it. But no, the short answer is no.
Okay.
They're doing it for they had appointments on Saturdays. They'd open up Saturdays and they'd open up a couple other days. But the primary day was, of course, Monday.
Okay.
And they would basically Monday was we're all going to work on CCW days, from what I understand. But this is interesting. This is a piece of news that was interesting that I heard from my buddy that worked for a He actually worked for a licensing department. He talked about, because I was talking about how the renewals or CCW issuances were being delayed because of California DOJ, because they were taking a long time to do the live scans, to process the live scans. And he and I had a conversation. He said, you know what, that was true. So this is I think good news. He said that was true, but in the last couple years, a few years ago, it's actually 2021, there was a California appellate court ruling. It was the all of us or none versus Hamrick case, which actually didn't really have to do with CCWs. It had to do with privacy and live scans and that sort of thing. Basically what happened is they said, hey, the way California DOJ is processing live scans is wrong in a bunch of different ways. So they're not, there's not enough protection of privacy, and it's taking way too long. So they adjusted. So what I found out is, let's see. What I found out is that I got some statistics for you. You want to hear some statistics?
I love it.
No. Let's see. Okay, so live scan fingerprinting results typically take 1 to 7 days. 1 to 7 days to be processed by the California Department of Justice, with results returning within 24 to 72 hours if there are no issues. Only 2% to 10% of live scan fingerprints results take over a week to process. So 90% plus are processed done within a week. The 2% to 10% estimate accounts for cases delayed by poor fingerprint quality, high submission volumes, or complex criminal history reviews. This information actually came directly from California DOJ. They actually went on to say that most results, 90% or more, are typically returned within 48 hours, 48 hours to 7 days. So things have really sped up. I mean, it used to really truly be a bottleneck, and now that is it's no longer the case. So things are improving drastically. Now it's still, there's still a volume problem, right? There's still a bunch of different counties. I mean, there's 58 counties that are now issuing more CCWs than they ever have before.
Right.
And then LA is starting to crack. And when LA cracks, man, it's going to be, huge. But the good news is this lawsuit that really didn't have anything to do with CCWs is a major improvement. What do you think about that?
Well, that makes me happy. I think that's great. However, I'm just curious, where's the bottleneck then? If it's not them.
Well, the bottleneck is in San Diego specifically. The bottleneck really continues to be staffing. Okay. And the reason, I think that if you look at like some county, like I think Orange County's got like 15 people. 15 people, that's a lot of people. That's a lot of salaries. And, they're 3.2 million people. San Diego's about 3.5 million people. LA County is something like 8 million people or whatever. I don't think LA has 15 people working on CCWs. No. So we have tried hard in San Diego to get the county. So the County Board of Supervisors is where the sheriff gets their funding. And right now we have a majority anti-Second Amendment County Board of Supervisors. And there's an election, a special election to come up to elect a fifth. Neither one of those candidates are pro-Second Amendment. So it's kind of difficult.
How many clerks do we have? Because last I heard there was 12. Do we know?
I think that's about right. I think I know they added to staff, but it's also a little misleading. For example, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but the 15 people in Orange County are spending more time on CCWs. I don't know if they're
dividing it like we are having to.
We have to divide it.
Sex offenders and
all kinds of different weird licensing malarkey. So anyway, wanted to let you know what's going on. Things are moving in the right direction for a lot of different reasons, but it's still not perfect. And of course, we still have to continue to fight. It's interesting. I did find out that there's actually in penal code, there is a requirement. There's a time requirement for CCWs, which we were talking about a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
It's PC 25205. It's 120 days for your CCW. 120 days from accepting the application and 30 days from live scan. Did you know that was in the penal code?
Yep.
You did?
Well, when we talked about it a couple weeks back, I did look it up.
You looked it up?
Correct. Yep.
You know what the problem is?
They don't accept the application until you are in a live scan. So your application date when you submit it online is not truly an application date. It's a request for an
That is
application date.
a problem, but you know what the problem with that penal code requirement is? What happens if you break it?
There's no penalty.
There's no penalty.
There's no penalty. Yeah.
Zero teeth.
Yep.
Zero teeth to that.
Right.
So it's there in spirit. Everybody hopes they do a good job, but there's no actual penalty. Now,
It's not like pizza at 30 minutes, your pizza's free.
Right,
you know
right,
what I'm
right.
saying?
Yeah. No, nothing like that. Our sheriff in San Diego wants to do a good job. The sheriff in Riverside wants to do a good job. The sheriff in Orange County, San Bernardino, they want to do a good job. It's just a couple of places like San Francisco and LA where they are going out of their way to do a bad job. So anyway, that's a little bit of update. Thank you to the anonymous guy who I had a conversation with to give us that information. I appreciate it. But again, I think it's, let's see, just to go back. So you are going to have to do a live scan starting in 2026, September. You can do your renewal 90 days prior, and there are an additional 100 slots per month, and they're looking at expanding that more. So that's to kind of wrap everything up there. All right. What should we do now?
All right, well, I guess now it's time for our gun truth of the week.
Gun truth of the week. Okay, so this is pretty interesting. The National Association of Chiefs of Police annual survey in 2017, which, quote, represents a broad cross-section of professional command officers involving every state and every size department. So that's very broad. They produced the following results to the following questions. Question number 1. Should any vetted citizen be able to purchase a firearm for sport or self-defense? 88% said yes. 7% said no. 3% were NA. Question number 2. Does your department support nationwide recognition of state-issued concealed weapon permits? In other words, reciprocity. 85% said yes. 11% said no. 3% were NA. And then the third question was, can qualified law-abiding armed citizens help law enforcement reduce violent criminal activity? 80% said yes, 14%, 15% said no, and 4.5% were NA. That is your gun truth of the week. Now, I got to tell you, let's be clear on this. So this was done by one of their organizations, but this was done. They were talking about, like the front line. They were talking about, these were beat cops that did this. In other words, this wasn't their government affairs guy. This wasn't their union rep or whatever. Because and the reason I want to make that distinction is because their unions, their organizations are typically on the wrong side of gun laws. And it's real easy, they found in California, if they want to get the police departments on their side when they're doing some kind of anti-gun law or bill, or if they just want the police to just stay out of it, they exempt them. And then boom, law enforcement says, we don't care. We support it because we're not affected by it. It is very important to understand that the line guys, the front line guys, the beat cops, the guys that are actually out there enforcing laws, overwhelmingly support your right to keep and bear arms, whereas the organizations that represent them vote a lot of times in a very different way. And I think that reflects poorly on law enforcement and has changed the attitude towards law enforcement, or at least in part has been part of the reason that gun owners have a relationship with law enforcement officers that shouldn't be as strained as it is. That's a good way of putting it, right? Mm-hmm. So I got to tell you, if you're a law enforcement officer, whether current or former, and and you care about the Second Amendment, this is one of your issues that, you care about. And if you're listening to the show, I'm assuming you're that person. Making the organizations that represent you, that take your membership fee, making them respect the Second Amendment, making them respect or support candidates who respect the Second Amendment, I think should be a huge priority. That's somewhere you could have a huge difference on the state of affairs in your state, in your community, in your county when it comes to Second Amendment, because I butt heads with law enforcement organizations often. They do not prioritize your Second Amendment rights, and they downright go against them sometimes. So there you go. What do you think about that, Alicia?
It's wild.
It's a little wild.
Yep.
Okay, let's see. So we got a couple of questions here.
I'm curious on the answer on this one.
Yeah, this is a good one here. Go ahead. Yeah, read the question. You read the question. So we got this
Right.
question emailed to us.
All right, so here's the question. It's a long one, so stick with me. So it says, and this is a letter written out. It says, I have lived in Spring Valley for 3 years on military orders as a spouse, and that spouse part is important. And we have signed for another 3 years starting in July. Because of the military, I maintained my out-of-state driver's license for Texas. I was looking into gun laws in California, and I've come across an area that is quite vague. Some gun stores will not talk to me about it, and others have given vague responses. I was hoping that you might be able to clarify things for me or point me in the right direction. From what I understand, I should be able to buy a handgun on the grounds that I am here on orders. However, I have received mixed responses from the gun stores. What I do know is, assuming I was not military, with a hunting license I could buy rifles but not handguns. But because I am military, would not classify for the regulation which permits the purchase of a handgun. If there was a way for me to purchase a handgun as a military spouse, are there any regulations which would bar me from applying for a CCW?
Okay, so you get that. You get that question.
Yes. So the CCW part, I know the answer to. The purchase of a gun. This is interesting because I work here in a gun shop. Coming in to purchase a gun when you are military, you have military orders. There's a way to make that happen. The part that I personally have never experienced, never given any thought to, is if you are the spouse. Being the spouse, you're not on the orders.
Right, and there's actually a lot to consider here. Mm-hmm. There's the basic stuff you have to consider, like, hey, are they 21?
Right.
Are they, So let's set aside all the normal stuff. Okay, let's set aside, things that apply to every single gun purchaser in California. They can't be a felon. They can't be a prohibited person. They have to be 21. They have to take the test. They have to do, have to get the firearms safety certificate.
Which they're exempt from when they have orders in their military.
The
military member does.
The military member is not the spouse.
Correct.
Not the spouse. Are they? So the other question that I looked up is, because I wasn't quite sure, is are they even required to get a California ID, California driver's license? So if you're the spouse if you're a dependent, are you required to get California's driver's license or state ID? And the answer is no. You're not. You're not allowed. You're not required. You can if you want to, but you're not required. Right. So they have to do all the normal stuff. They can continue to have a state ID or driver's license from whatever their state is. But the short answer is yes to both. You can get your CCW. You can purchase a firearm. You can purchase a long gun. You can purchase a handgun. You can purchase a shotgun, a rifle, whatever is legal in California as long as you follow all the same laws and requirements as anybody else. If you are a dependent, you have to show your military ID and you have to show a copy of your spouse's orders.
Okay. Basically
saying, hey, here you go. Here's where here's why you're in California, but you're not a resident of California.
I'm just kind of playing, I guess, in my own mind, a little bit of devil's advocate on the other side. I know from a shop's perspective, I don't know how often the whole spouse thing has ever come up. I've never been part of it. I've not seen it. I know that anytime that your name is non-exact as on your ID with your documents, your proof of residency and things like that, they won't accept it. I would imagine that, I guess I'm just kind of thinking it through in my head, but thinking as I'm speaking. It's interesting.
By the way,
And I imagine there might be a lot of shops that have no clue what to do with this either.
I'm sure they do. But
Yeah.
there's, by the way, this doesn't mean it's going to be bump free. There's
Right.
going to be some issues.
Right.
But it can be done and should be done. This isn't some weird exception. It's pretty easy for shops to find. It's not like they're making some weird exception.
Right.
It's not like it's should be anything they even should have to worry about. As long as they get the proper, hey, yeah, here's this person. This person is a dependent, and this person, their sponsor, the active duty military person, does have orders to be here. They should be good to go. The rest of it should be, exactly the same process. They do have to get the FSC. They do have to provide proof of residency, all the other good stuff. So there you go. What do you think of that?
I think it's great. Yeah, I honestly had no clue as I read this. I was like, oh, interesting. I hadn't given that any thought.
Yeah, right?
Yep. Good to know.
Okay, so we were talking about live scan earlier. If you do have issues with your live scan, in other words, if you put in for a live scan and you're not quite sure, and we actually have the website that we're going to, that I want to bring to your attention. If you need to check the status of your live scan, you did your live scan yesterday and now you were wondering like, hey, what's going on? Or maybe it was a week ago or 3 days ago or whatever. You want to see the status of your live scan. Rich is actually going to bring up a website here. It is applicantstatus.doj.ca.gov. So I'm going to read that one more time. applicantstatus.doj.ca.gov. Pretty easy, really. It's through the California DOJ. They're a government entity, and you're looking up your applicant status. So applicantstatus.doj.ca.gov.
And was this just CCW related background checks? Or are you talking about
Any live
anything?
scan.
So like if you had an undetermined on your droves and you
So this is just checking the status of your live scan.
okay.
Yeah. So if you have any issues with
any live scan. Okay.
Yeah, any
Got
live
it.
scan, any issues. Somebody asked about that as well. Somebody asked a couple weeks ago when we first started talking about live scans and CCW delays. If you do have any issues on that, I wanted to bring that up. applicantstatus.doj.gov. So there you go. All right. Why don't we do our lawsuits and legal?
All right, this segment is our legal and legislative segment where we tell you what you need to know from the courts and from the legislators. Remember, we are not lawyers and nothing we say is to be taken as legal advice. Our sponsor, John Dillon, is a lawyer who has been helping people to fight GVROs. Those are gun violence restraining orders, plus more. If you know somebody that's had their self-defense rights taken away without due process, give John a call. His website is dillonlawgp.com and his phone number is 760-642-7150.
So is the NFA all but completely gone? Well, we got a whole bunch of good news. We talked about the NFA. We talked about the work on the NFA. And it's interesting. People don't fully understand. I want to be clear. We're really talking, this is a tax issue. All we're talking about is a tax. This tax, though, is preventative for you to purchase all kinds of stuff. Suppressors, short barrel rifles, all kinds of stuff. And so that's the reason that it is a part of the spending bill. So Congress right now is going back and forth from the House to the Senate with a spending bill, the big, beautiful bill. And what they're attempting to do is completely remove all the tax requirements for that are basically spelled out in the NFA. So it's looking really good. A few weeks ago, we had people call the one of the committees and say, "Hey, look, what are you doing? Completely remove this crap. Don't we shouldn't have don't infringe on our Second Amendment rights with this tax and prevent us from doing what we need to do to buy suppressors and that sort of thing." So this just happened this few days ago, this past week. Today, the U.S. Senate Committee on Finance released its portion of the Senate version of the reconciliation bill, which is this big, beautiful bill. We explained reconciliation and that process to you a couple weeks ago as well. Last month, the U.S. House passed a version of the reconciliation bill, which included Section 2 of the Hearing Protection Act, which has to do with making suppressors legal again, which would remove suppressors from the NFA. In the portion that was just released by the U.S. Senate, they have included provisions on the SHORT Act, which is sponsored by the U.S. Senate by the U.S. Senate by Senator Roger Marshall. He's out of Kansas, as well as several conforming amendments which would help ease confusion arising from removal of these items from the NFA. So basically, they are removing this whole thing, when it comes to suppressors and when it comes to short-barrel shotguns, when it comes to short-barrel rifles. It looks like you're not going to have to go through the NFA and get the stupid tax stamp, which is one step closer to being available in California. Now, there are some states where this is just going to clear the way and it's going to make things all kinds of easy. But in California, we're still going to have to fight a little bit harder, but still, this is enormously good news. So they did have kind of this watered down version of it, and we all called and said, hey, you need to change this. Well, all that pressure seems to have worked. So it went from the House to the Senate, and the Senate said, yep, we're getting rid of this whole thing. It's when it comes to suppressors, short-barreled shotguns, short-barreled rifles, the SHORT Act and the Hearing Protection Act. But now it's got to go back to the House. But still, it's kind of like a football game. We just made a whole bunch of a yardage gain towards a big, huge touchdown. And that is really, really good. Now, I want to say, if you took the time to call at least once, and hopefully you called multiple times, if you took the time to call at least once and say, hey, this is important to me, you just helped with a victory. If you didn't call, if you heard me say, if you heard other people say, hey, here's what you need to do, just call and say, hey, this is important to me, please pass, the SAFE Act and the SHORT Act and the Safe Hearing Act. If you heard that request and didn't call, why not? Why didn't you call? Now, fortunately, this is moving forward without you having to help. But it just baffles me. Why wouldn't you call? You weren't a part of what is turning out to be a huge victory. Why wouldn't you make the time? And I want you to just think about that. There's so many times when it's so easy to make a difference, and so many people just think, someone else will do it. And it's kind of a mixed blessing. On the one hand, it looks like we're going to win, but on the other hand, a lot of the people that didn't do anything are right. Good things happen, and they didn't even lift a finger. And I hope that in the future, that when we call for help, you'll heed that call, you'll act. Anyway, so that's good news. It looks like things are going our way. Hasn't fully passed yet, but I did want to update people because there was a call for action. So I wanted to make sure that people understood that we are making a difference, and it's good. And when I say we, I mean the entire Second Amendment community in general. Okay, so this is interesting. A proposed bill would ban ICE agents and other law enforcement from wearing masks in California. This isn't exactly Second Amendment related, but I wanted to point out just how ridiculous lawmakers are in California. There's a lot of opportunities to do that, but I wanted to take this opportunity. In response to immigration raids by masked federal officials, their officers in Los Angeles and across the nation, 2 California lawmakers on Monday proposed a new state law to ban members of law enforcement from concealing their faces while on the job. The bill would make it a misdemeanor for local, state, and federal law enforcement officers to cover their faces, with some exceptions, and also encourage them to wear a form of identification on their uniform. Quote, we're really at risk of having effectively a secret police in this country, said State Senator appropriately named Scott Wiener out of San Francisco. He co-authored the bill. Okay, so let's break this down a little bit. So they have had riots, okay? They're out there saying, this is the end of democracy. They've compared ICE agents to the Gestapo. They're saying, hey, Trump is he's turning himself into a king. He's completely breaking the Constitution. He's breaking the law. ICE agents are, hauling people off in the dead of night who've done absolutely nothing wrong. These huge claims, like the entire country is falling apart, and it's led to riots that in many cases have turned very violent and even deadly, which we're going to talk about a little later in the show. All these claims. So what's their answer? The only thing they're doing to fix these supposed problems is they just want cops to stop wearing masks. It's ridiculous on every level there could be. It's showing that all these claims that they're making about law enforcement and what's going on are completely false. They're whipping people up into a frenzy. They're getting people all, violent, in the streets, throwing rocks at law enforcement. Over what? Over false claims. It's political theater. It's political kabuki theater. They're not sincere. This is the one thing they're going to do. This is going to be their victory. If only law enforcement weren't wearing masks, then they wouldn't be a Gestapo and threatening democracy. It's completely ludicrous. And and I'm not seeing a lot of people call them out on this. I'm not seeing reporters or other people saying, wait, you're making all these huge claims and the only action you're taking is to make sure they're not wearing a mask? Oh, by the way, the reason they're wearing a mask is because at the very beginning they were being doxxed and attacked and their families were being threatened. And so they said, well, gee, I think we're just going to put a mask on so we can do our job. Yep. According to our, the laws of the land, which haven't changed in decades, which are the same laws and the same execution under Biden, under Trump the first time, under Obama, under Bush, under Clinton, the exact same immigration laws, but all of a sudden it's a threat to democracy. All we're doing is enforcing these laws just like everybody before us, but suddenly our families are being threatened. So we're gonna put a face mask on. By the way, these are the same people that are, complaining about these masks, who back in 2020 were ready to put you in jail for not wearing a mask. Mm-hmm. But I digress. And their only solution here is to make a law so that these agents, these law enforcement officers, have to show their face. It's completely ridiculous. They should never be taken seriously. This is the kind of ridiculous mythological crap that gun owners have to put up with California lawmakers all the time. They, the sky is falling, and then they have some stupid bill so that law enforcement can't wear masks. Anyway, what do you think about that, Alicia?
Well, as you know, that one hits a little close to home for me.
Do you want to talk about why, or you just want to leave it there?
No, I'm going to leave it there.
Okay.
And so I will say, if you really, and you've already stated it, but really a point I want to kind of just highlight a little bit more is the purpose of the mask is not for them to do horrible things and to not be known, right? They're not trying to stay hidden because they plan to do something bad or evil. They're doing it to protect their family. Well, by trying to prevent them from being able to wear that mask as part of being identified on a personal level, basically they're saying we want to be able to find you and your family.
Yep.
That's what it is.
Exactly right. It's
they're pissed off because they can't find the family to make threats or to risk or to threaten harm. Yeah, I don't like it.
Nor should you. And again, it just exposes that everything else, you would think if it were truly harming democracy, if it were really truly turning the president into a monarch, if we were really truly doing the things that they claimed that they were doing, this wouldn't be the only bill that this wouldn't be their only attack.
Right.
Is that, if we just, if the officers weren't wearing masks, then democracy wouldn't be threatened. Bunch of liars. All right, let's move on. So the DOJ says that Illinois gun and magazine ban violates the Second Amendment. Now, that's the United States Department of Justice.
Interesting.
And we've talked about how this is pretty big. Like, this is not symbolic. This is a very big thing, and I wanted to bring it to everybody's attention. So we've talked about how Trump's DOJ is doing a fantastic job of defending the Second Amendment. They've turned it into they've turned in their arguments and their position into exactly what the Second Amendment is, which is a civil right. They're treating it like the civil right that it is. And so what happened, there are a lot of different gun bans, magazine bans, or what they like to call assault weapon bans across the country. And Illinois is one of the very few states, like California, Massachusetts, New Jersey, that has a gun ban that they call an assault weapons ban. So the U.S. DOJ came out with a statement that says, hey, this is unconstitutional. That's our stance. This is unconstitutional. And Bearing Arms did a really great article on it. Cam Edwards, fantastic guy. The Trump administration has taken another historic step in defense of the right to keep and bear arms by declaring in an amicus brief that Illinois' bans on commonly owned semi-automatic firearms and ammunition magazines that can hold more than 10 rounds violate the protections of the Second Amendment. This is huge. They issued this brief. The DOJ argued that there are, quote, 3 very good reasons why an appellate court should reverse course and affirm the district court's permanent injunction despite overturning U.S. District Judge Stephen McGlynn's earlier decision granting a preliminary injunction against the gun and magazine ban. Now, this is right from the brief. The position fails as a matter of text, history, and precedent. The Second Amendment prefatory clause, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, certainly does not limit the scope of its operative clause, as the Supreme Court made clear in Heller, but the Supreme Court was just as clear that the prefatory clause's text nevertheless announces one of the Second Amendment's purposes, and logic demands that there be a link between the stated purpose and the command. The Second Amendment's militia-related text, as interpreted by the Supreme Court, thus suggests that the government may not prohibit weapons simply because it considers them militaristic. The contrary claim that militaristic weapons fall outside of the scope wrongly requires reading the prefatory clause entirely out of the Second Amendment. Now, in a couple of episodes, we've actually talked about that, how people are saying, hey, you know what? An AR that a civilian purchases isn't a weapon of war. This decision, this brief is basically saying, hey, it absolutely has a military or militia purpose, and therefore that's one of the big reasons it can't be banned. Then it goes on to say, even the Miller case, which we brought up in previous episodes, even the Miller case from the 1930s held that only those arms best suited for a militia are protected under the Second Amendment, which the Seventh Circuit and other appellate courts appear to have simply ignored in order to uphold an AR-15 ban. And then again from the brief, multiple Supreme Court justices, including Bruin's author, have since made it clear that they disagree with Bevis and other recent lower court opinions, and that the court is likely to grant a certiorari in the next term or two, which is what Kavanaugh said. The next term or two, they're going to have some kind of decision on an assault weapons ban, quote-unquote assault weapons ban, to address the errors in this opinion. Third, after the court's decision in Bevis, the district court held a multi-day bench trial, heard significant evidence regarding the issues in the case, and made factual findings that show that the act violates the Second Amendment as applied to semi-automatic firearms and attachments that are in common use by law-abiding citizens for lawful reasons. So this is huge. This is yet another instance where the Trump administration is by far the strongest Second Amendment presidential administration that has ever existed, at very least in modern times. I mean, it is phenomenal what's going on. The fact that the Trump administration's Department of Justice submitted an amicus brief saying, hey, you can't ban semi-automatic rifles that you choose to refer to as assault weapons. You can't ban their accessories. You can't ban crucial parts like magazines, no matter how many rounds that they show. Enormously important and extremely, extremely helpful. So I wanted to point that out. Okay, that is your legal and legislative segment. I wanted to point all that out and bring you up to speed. Now you know all you got to know.
All right, those are the bills and lawsuits, so now you know. But what can you do about it? Let's do our deployment segment to find out.
Okay, our deployment segment is where we tell you the things that you can do in order to be involved and be effective. This is brought to you by SageTree, sagetree.com. If you have a website, you need to contact SageTree and say, hey, check out my website, make sure that we're doing it right. If you want to be even more effective at digital marketing, you need to talk to SageTree. Go to sagetree.com. Gun Owners Radio uses them. San Diego County Gun Owners uses them. Inland Empire Gun Owners uses them. Not Me California uses them. Orange County Gun Owners uses them. They are absolutely fantastic. You should use them too. Okay, we talked about the 2025 Gun Rights Policy Conference for Second Amendment Foundation. If you haven't signed up, sign up. September 22nd through the September 28th, 2025. That's just a few months away. It's in Salt Lake City. Go to saf.org/GRPC for more information. If you go, which is free, you just got to find your own transportation and lodging. You could meet Alan Gottlieb from Second Amendment Foundation, Adam Kraut from Second Amendment Foundation, Charlie Cook from Riding Shotgun with Charlie, and Jared Yanis from Guns and Gadgets, and also Michael Schwartz from Gun Owners Radio, and Alicia Curtin from Gun Owners Radio. You can meet us both, and we're looking forward to having a good time and learning a lot about activism. Tabletops and shooting socials. We need help here. You already missed the gun show. The gun show was this weekend and went really, really well. It was fantastic. It was great. Welcome back, gun show. But there are all kinds of other opportunities. Shooting socials, we need your help. We really, truly need you to step up and say, hey, I want to help people. I want to help give them a first-time shooting experience. If you've never done it before, we'll teach you, but we need you to sign up. If you've never helped at a tabletop, this is such an easy and fun thing to do. All you do is give us half a day. We'll teach you how. You'll never be alone. You show up and you give information to folks who are coming to a gun shop or some other organization or event that we're doing, and you show them, information about getting their CCW or joining San Diego County Gun Owners or whatever we got going on. But gosh, it's just not that hard. It's so easy, but not enough people are doing it. It's the same faces over and over again.
I have to say, can I speak really quickly about
Yes.
the shooting socials? I've done quite a few of them. They're fantastic. And if you are curious, well, what the heck is a shooting social? Right? That's where, Mike, you invite people that are looking for really a first-time introduction to guns, or maybe not a very first time, but maybe more of a formal first time. And what we need volunteers for is just to be a mentor, to sit in that, or to stand in that booth with that person. You bring your own firearm, 9mm preferred, and you give them a shooting experience where you just help to ensure that they're safe, and you teach them what you know. And there's other people there to help and support too if you're not super confident. It's a wonderful opportunity.
There you go.
So,
go to sdcgo.org/volunteer.
And you don't have to be an official instructor to do it.
Nope. We'll teach you how. Intro to Off-Grid Comms, July 26th. That's coming up. It's only $250. It's in El Cajon. A lot of people ask if it's a ham radio class. It is not a ham radio class. It's a class that teaches how to communicate without cell service, without internet, and without satellite service, using off-the-shelf tools that are affordable and that are commonly available. Ham radio is just one of the tools that's covered. There's no need to get your ham radio certification. The class won't help you get your ham radio certification, although it's encouraged, but you will leave knowing how you can use radios as a part of your communication tool belt. Sign up today. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Rich, but there's a giveaway, right?
Yes, sir.
So if you sign up today, you could get how many are we doing? Is it
Just one.
So we're giving one of these away. So
Yeah.
we need you to sign up. If you sign up right now, you could win this really cool, handy dandy. What do you call this thing?
It's a Meshtastic communicator.
Meshtastic communicator. So this is one of the things you're going to learn about. It's one of the things that's going to help you communicate with people. You don't have to have the internet. It's not an internet toy. It's not a ham radio or whatever. This is a way that you can communicate when all those systems fail. You can still communicate. So come to the class. You'll get one of these. If you win, you got to sign up, and you could win. You'll be entered to possibly get one of these for free.
Yep. Got to sign up by July 10, and then we're going to pull a winner, and then you could be getting that Meshtastic communicator, a Liligo T Echo, for free. It's about $75 to $90 value.
There you go. Sign up today. Go to gunownersradio.com and sign up today. Okay, Prepared Protector First Aid for Gun Owners, August 23rd. El Cajon, $280, $281. Get the training, get the gear, get the confidence. Know you're prepared. So while you're at gunownersradio.com, check that out. Check out Masad Ayub. We've talked about that. September 4 and 5, he's coming back. Live fire class, Lemon Grove Rod and Gun. And then September 6 and 7, he's going to have the classroom. Live fire is $620, and the classroom is $500. You are going to get to train with a true legend. Masada Ayub. He was here back in March. Everybody loved him so much. There wasn't enough room for everybody, so we're bringing him back. There's actually also going to be a dinner. Check out Masada Ayub. It's going to be at the Lemon Grove Rod and Gun Club. Okay.
An exciting few months coming up.
There is kind of an exciting
Gun
few
show
months
in June. We have the intro to OffGrid in July, the Prepared First Aid in August, Mossad in September, as well as the GRPC in September.
There you go. Okay, our guest today is Kristie Bruce Lane. Kristie is running for state senate in the 40th district, which is kind of northern San Diego. It covers a lot of territory. Kristie's a proven leader in her community and understands the value of having strong representatives that reflects the voices of the district in Sacramento. It is my pleasure to have Kristie Bruce Lane on. Kristie, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you for having me today.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for joining us. So you're running for state senate. First off, tell us a little bit about Senate District 40. What's the makeup? What's in it? What's it cover?
Okay, so Senate District 40 is split Democrat registration 34%, Republican 34%. So it's neck and neck. But then we have no party preference or decline to state at 31. So it's D+2 district. But it is always been held by a Republican. This district is currently, Brian Jones sits in the seat. He's termed out. It does cover, like you said, a large part of East County, but North County, San Diego. So it's Rainbow, Fallbrook, Bonsall Valley Center, dips into Escondido, San Marcos, Rancho Bernardo Poway, and it heads east, Lakeside, Verona. It's a pretty fairly large district. Total voters are about 500,000 in this district, 586,000.
Wow.
This is a Republican seat, and I intend to keep that a Republican seat by winning this and going to Sacramento.
Well, it sounds like with 31%, if it's equal Democrat, equal Republican, it sounds like the key is winning the not declareds. A lot of people refer to them as the independents, and what they're saying is they are independent of the Republican Party or independent of the Democratic Party. It's not really all that accurate. In fact, they're really just declined to state is really the accurate way to describe those folks. It means that they are choosing not to state whether they're more Republican or more Democrat. Not necessarily independent, not necessarily middle of the road. In fact, a lot of studies show that some people with more extreme views actually decline to state. In other words, they may care deeply about a subject and don't feel that either party cares as deeply as they do. Therefore, they're not going to register with either of those parties. But they're kind of all over the map. So running for office, and being in the community, what have you found about the decline to state voter? What are they looking for, and what have you learned about them?
Yeah, the decline to state voter, typically, we've seen in the last cycle, they will lean right. But what I do know about them is that they do care about this, what we call the 70% issues. And those are issues that really, and I've always said this, Mike, I don't really care what side of the aisle you sit on. But what I do care about are the things that we actually agree on. And that's, our cost of living that's out of control, whether we talk about public safety, the border issues, we talk about fentanyl, sexually violent predators in our community, homelessness, or educational excellence for our children. And, those are the things that bind us. And I do know that the independents, they do care about those issues.
I think you're right. That's what I find. And I think it's right to say that a lot of them have a key issue that they home in on and say, hey, this is my do or die issue, whatever it is. Maybe it's Second Amendment, maybe it's some other issue. I know there's a lot of gun owners who have decided not to affiliate with either party because they don't feel like they've fully embraced, support for the Second Amendment. Now, you're somebody who we've endorsed, San Diego County Gun Owners has endorsed before and have proven to be very vocal on Second Amendment issues. Do you want to tell the listeners, how do you feel about the Second Amendment and gun ownership in general?
Yeah, I'm a big supporter of Second Amendment. It's part of our Constitution. I guess you could say I'm a constitutional Republican. It is how I feel about it. It's foundational to maintaining all other rights. You know, our Second Amendment is consistently under fire, no pun intended, in California. And it's being eroded year after year, election cycle after election cycle. And one thing I do know is that in order to stop this, you have to stop electing people that don't stand up for the Second Amendment. And I am one that will stand up for the Second Amendment. I'm a gun owner. I'm a legal gun owner. And we have a fundamental right to protect our well-being, our families. And I have been, and I've had some experience with protecting my own property and myself. You know, I lived in Northern California for 6 years. This was prior to being married. I was alone. I owned a house. I lived on a third of an acre back, you know, out in the country in a rural area. And I'll tell you, nothing scarier for a woman than being stopped for 2 years by somebody who shows up in a mask, gloves, and boots on their feet,
Jeez.
ready to enter your home and do harm. And I think most women would agree on that issue. We are targets in those areas. And for any of those women who've experienced that, you never forget the fear that you feel when you don't have any protection. All I had was my Labrador named River, who I think he made friends with the perpetrator because he's a really nice dog. So he didn't help. But I'm a staunch supporter of the Second Amendment. I will not waver on that as well.
Good. Yeah, and you haven't. You know, you've run in the past. In other races, you've gotten, of course, San Diego County Gun Owners endorsement. You've gotten CRPA's endorsement. And one of the first things you did when you announced for state senate in the 40th is you went for the Second Amendment community's endorsements right off the bat. So what was it like? What's it like running for office in your district, in San Diego, in California, with a Second Amendment endorsement? You know, what have you found? What's the feedback?
I think running with that endorsement is very important, especially in the 40, where I know in the Senate District 40, there are a lot of people who stand for the Second Amendment. You know, I'll never forget, and I like to tell this story. I think most people do believe in the Second Amendment. And I think that over the years, the past few years, a lot of people have been tested to that point. Now, look at a prime example in Israel, October 7th. Okay. This is what happens when you don't have the right to protect yourself. Now they do. I think they were caught off guard. But I'll never forget a conversation that I had with one of my neighbors, which I will remain nameless. This was during the time of COVID, and there were a lot of break-ins, a lot of burglaries, a lot of the criminals start coming out and taking advantage of those who are most vulnerable. And a lot of people in my neighborhood started installing Ring cameras. I mean, we're talking Ring cameras on the front door, Ring cameras on their side gates, Ring cameras on their roof. I mean, you name it, there was a Ring camera everywhere. And we started having break-ins. And I live in a decent neighborhood where you don't see a lot of break-ins, but that's changed, I'll say, today. My neighbor came out scared and asked me the question, well, what are we going to do? Because the police response time was delayed 45 minutes. Of course, the police have been defunded. You know, they've given the police a bad name. Nobody wanted to back the blue, which I do. And this is a household who doesn't own firearms. And she asked the question, what do I do if there's a break-in? Now, they have 2 small children as well. And I had to look at her, and I know she's a registered Democrat. And I said, the police will not be able to help you. They're going to show up and do a cleanup job. Yeah. That's what's going to happen. You have to protect your family. There's no taking it back. Once the perpetrator breaks in your house, murders your child, rapes you, or do whatever they want to do with you behind the walls, I said, you are your family's line of defense, because it does take a little bit of time for police to respond. And you need to be able to hold that perpetrator off until they either respond, or you may be left with the ultimate decision to fight for your life in whatever way what that looks like. But you're not even giving yourself a chance.
Yeah, I think you've been a big supporter of our Not Me program, where we help women.
Yes, I have.
We help them get a gun, get training, and get a permit. And you've been very, very supportive of that program. Why is that? It sounds, well, I guess you've kind of answered. I was going to ask, why is that an important program to you? But you're kind of answering it now. But what are your thoughts on our Not Me program?
I think it's great. I mean, for those who have never been around guns or who want to learn self-defense training, and that's just buying you some time. And that's what you need, is to buy yourself time when your house is broken into or you have a perpetrator coming after you. I'm a huge fan. Of course, in my own organization, I deal with the aftermath of domestic violence or trauma on children. And
what's the name of your organization?
it's the Thumbprint Project Foundation. So what we do is we help transition homeless children who've been impacted by domestic violence, human trafficking, or trauma. I mean, these kids have witnessed pretty horrific things in their life and have undergone trauma. Now, the important thing is once these kids have, have this trauma on the brain, these neural pathways are formed, they're more than likely to go down the wrong path in life unless it's addressed. So that's what we do in my organization. But getting back to not me as as a female or even as a male, I mean, you want to be able to protect your family, whether that's self-defense or if you do choose to get a concealed carry or purchase a firearm. But it is a very important program. And I believe in it. There's a lot of victims out there that I know that wish they said, I wish I had that self-defense training. I wish I knew how to use a firearm. Not that I ever want to own one or fire a gun. Nobody ever wants to do that. Nobody ever wants to take the life of somebody else. Even police officers don't want to take the life of other people.
Yeah.
And
nobody does.
I think that's important to point out because they then undergo trauma after a shooting.
So we're watching, you've talked about you're a Republican, you're a supporter of the local Republican Party, you're actually very active in the local Republican Party, and we're watching nationwide the Democratic Party fall apart, and I mean really fall apart. We get into all kinds of details on how they're losing funding, they're losing support, they're losing races. It's really pretty ugly. But we're still in California. We're still, even in San Diego, which historically has been a lot more Republican than Democrat, but now it's just a little more Republican. In fact, I think that it's pretty neck and neck. We're pretty purple at this point. But what are your thoughts on what's happened nationally with Republicans versus Democrats? And then what are your thoughts on the local political landscape?
Yeah, so nationally, I mean, obviously, we went red. I mean, it was a sweep. Trump won by a landslide. California, I always believe, is a country on its own, and it's different when it comes to local politics. In my last race, what's interesting is I beat Trump in his numbers. I beat Garvey. I put up great numbers. Ultimately, was unable to prevail in that race, but the Democrats had $5.5 million they were able to dump on me. This time, that's not going to be the case. And we're going to win this seat. But locally, it's a little different. We dice our territory up. We really analyze it. And that plays a huge part. What we found in my last district which overlaps the Senate seat, by the way, you get the uninformed and uneducated individuals that we need to reach, right? And reach with my message. Again, I will still go back to it's educating the Democrats. No matter how liberal they are, there are some you can't reach, but there are a lot of moderates who understand that the government is in their back pocket. We're seeing increased cost of living.
Is there? Let me ask you. This is something I ask just about every candidate. Is there a particular plank in the Republican platform that you disagree with, that you're not on the same page with as your own party?
A specific plank? That's a good question, Mike.
Thank you. I should do this more often.
You know what? I'm going to give it a broad stroke here, but this is what I don't agree with at all. That you get elected and you go to Sacramento or you go to Washington and you don't fight. That you sit there, we call it milquetoast. We have no time for that anymore. We need fighters. We need fighters in Sacramento and we need fighters in Washington. And that's what I don't agree with. Electing Republicans who refuse to go up there and fight, that just want a job and just want a paycheck and just want to show up to vote every now and then. And I also disagree with when you get elected that you don't go up there and you put resolutions on the floor or that you don't put bills on the floor. That's your job. And there's a lot of things that need to be changed in San Diego, in California, and you've got to have the experience. And I happen to have that experience, which, is a bright line between my opponents and myself. And you got to be able to go up there and fight for the things that people elect you for.
You've been a fighter. That's one of the things that was real clear to me from the first time I met you at a Republican Central Committee meeting, is that you are absolutely a fighter. You're not shy about standing up and saying, hey, right or wrong, whatever you believe, this is where I stand. These are my principles, and I'm going to fight for it. Let me ask you one last question about being an elected official. Let's say there's a bill that's being that you're going to have to vote on. And let's say that you know for a fact that 90% of your district, 90%, you know for a fact that 90% want you to vote for it, but you are completely opposed. It's the very fiber of your being opposes this bill. As an elected official, are you supposed to vote the way 90% of your district wants you to vote, or do you vote your own principles?
Well, I mean, we can carve out, let's look at, okay, I'm going to talk about this in two ways. Yes, I represent my district and I vote according to what my district wants. That's why they elected me, because they supposedly elected me because I hold their values, that I will go up there with, they believe in what I'm fighting for. They believe in what I believe in. But let's take an issue, Second Amendment. There are, this is why we're going through what we're going through in California, always having to fight for our Second Amendment rights. And I think that is, and they used it against me last cycle, that I do believe in Second Amendment. That's one issue I'm not going to waver on in Sacramento. We have the duty, and I'm representing all of the state of California now, we have the right to protect ourselves. I don't believe the Senate District 40 is anti-2A. They know I will fight for 2A. Mm-hmm. But I mean, there are some wedge issues where my principles, like Second Amendment, that I believe in the Constitution, I will always hold to the Constitution, that I will stand strong on. Nice. If that answers your question, Mike.
I think that perfectly answers my question. I'm not sure there's even a right or wrong answer to that question, but it's always a good thought-provoking question that candidates,
yes.
It's a good exercise for them to go through. Okay, Kristie Bruce Lane, Senate District number 40. Where can people learn more about you and contribute either their dime or their time to your campaign?
Yeah, so it's KristieBruceLane.com. And it's not only about the money. The donations allow me to get my message to the voters, which we need. But if you have chance to volunteer, to make phone calls, those are all ways, or walk the district, those are all ways that you can help me. I'm going to go up there and fight to reduce our cost of living. I'm going to fight for public safety. Again, I work in the area of homelessness. We can solve this issue, and we need to get educational excellence back to our future generation, and that's our children. I need your help. I look forward to getting up to the state of California representing Senate District 40. And I appreciate you, Mike, as well, and all that you do for our community. But to learn more about me, go to KristieBruceLane.com. You can also email me, and you can call me, and I will talk to you if you have any questions. I'll feel free to call you back or email you back, and we'll have a conversation.
Great. Awesome job. If I don't see you before, have a very great 4th of July, and I hope to talk to you soon. And thanks for making the time. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Let's win.
Okay, now we're going to do Alicia's Curtain Call. Curtain Call brought to you by Cargo, Cases and Rugged Gear Outfitters in El Cajon. The website, of course, is cargostores.com. Or you can go visit them, which we highly encourage you to do, 423 Broadway in El Cajon. There are two enemies of your firearms. That's rust and the government. The good news is Cargo does a little bit to back you on both fronts. As a proud sponsor, they're helping us fight to get more pro 2A officials in office, and their rugged cases help you keep your firearms secure and protected. Built like a tank, Cargo cases are stackable, weatherproof, and ready for anything, whether you're hitting the range or going off the grid. Cargo. So check them out. Cases and Rugged Gear Outfitters. Great product, great prices, and commonly good service. cargo. Okay, today's Alicia's curtain call is I pulled my gun on him. Let's see.
Video shows mid-beach homeowner confronting burglar.
Yeah, I pulled my gun on him. Video shows mid-beach homeowner confronting burglar. Suspect caught after manhunt. So what happened here? Talk to us.
So this one's kind of interesting. So this happened in the state of Florida. The article itself comes from WSVN.com, which is a local news agency in Florida, in Miami Beach, Florida. And so what we have is based on the article, honestly, was a little bit kind of all over the place. And so there actually, thankfully, was a video linked to the article, which helped it to make a little bit more sense. So what we have here is we have a gentleman who owns property in Florida. It clearly is a very large property with multiple homes. There's a courtyard surrounded by various buildings. It's a large property.
Gotcha.
And so what it states is that this homeowner, he does have a wife and he has children, and he states that his home security cameras alerted him to someone on the property. So someone was in the courtyard area.
Never a good feeling.
Not good, right? You know that they're not good, not there for something good.
Right.
Was the middle of the night. And so what this homeowner did is he handed his wife a handgun, and he took one himself, and he went outside in his bathrobe. Now, the article stated that he went outside in his bathrobe with his firearm and a flashlight. And one of the parts that I kind of personally found a little bit confusing is they talk about how this person got into the property and was taking things out of the refrigerator, yogurt in particular. But then the article just talks about the occurrences in the courtyard. And so it was a little bit confusing. But by watching the video, what we see is that, yes, the homeowner did leave his home, entered into the courtyard, and this burglar had broken into one of the adjacent buildings. Gotcha. So still part of the property. There's multiple homes on this property. And so this burglar broke in. And so he had taken some things, primarily food from the fridge. This homeowner, the really key fantastic thing is he had a firearm.
The burglar was taking food.
Took yogurt out of the refrigerator. Yeah.
Fruit on the bottom or regular?
That's a great question. Didn't clarify.
Okay.
That does make a difference, right?
Well,
it does. Right.
Was
it Greek yogurt?
That's I mean, you kind of think like, well, he's taking food. That's so violating, though. That's so creepy that somebody's in your house doing something as private and personal as taking, digging through your refrigerator.
Right, and you can see in the video that this guy had a covering on his face. He was all set up. He was ready. This wasn't just someone walking down the street and in the wrong house.
I think it's just somebody that comfortable inside your home is creepy.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I don't know.
Just letting himself right in.
All right, go ahead.
All right. So our homeowner was able to then kind of get this guy out of. He scared him off. He basically presented the firearm and was able to get this burglar to then leave the premises, where the burglar proceeded to jump the fence and to then hide himself on an adjacent property, where law enforcement then did come and find him.
And we have video, right?
We do.
All right, let's watch the video.
Now in just one station, a homeowner speaking out after confronting a suspected burglar in the middle of the night. He then took off, triggering a manhunt before being caught and cuffed by police. 7's Alex Browning is live in Miami Beach, where it all happened. Alex?
And Ethan, you can imagine how startling this was, all of this happening Thursday. The alarm goes off, the dog begins to bark. This homeowner grabs a gun, then finds out that this intruder raided his fridge, grabbed the yogurt, and then took off.
The only thing that was going through my mind at the time was to protect myself and my family at all costs.
With a gun and flashlight in hand, a Miami Beach father facing a home invader.
And the dog was barking. One of the alarms sounded. I checked the cameras. I saw him downstairs in the property.
It happened overnight Thursday on Pine Tree Drive near 41st Street. Baba Joshua Yesharim says his 4 kids and wife were home when this crook entered his house and, strangely enough, only raided the fridge.
He took a few of my kids' yogurts from all we can find. We can't really find anything else. He could have taken, or tried to take, I should say, a lot more. I don't know. I assume he wasn't there for just yogurts.
Yesharim catching up with him in the front yard, which is gated.
I pulled my gun on him, and I told him to freeze, to stop. He looked at me, and he started running away from me, and it looked like he went toward my neighbor's house and hopped the wall there.
Police called and quickly got a chopper in the air and boats in the water nearby. More than a dozen Miami Beach officers flooded.
So it seems like maybe this guy changed his mind or something. What are some of the lessons learned here? What do you think? What are your thoughts?
There's a couple of them. One is kudos to this guy for having a surveillance video in place, like camera, right? Because if you can see what's happening outside your home, you don't have to open your door to investigate. You don't have to look out there and kind of open up a barrier that keeps you safe to see what's happening. So I love the idea of a camera on the outside of the home showing that too. He had a firearm available and he had it and he was able to get to it. Not only that, but he doesn't say in the video, but in the article it states he also armed his wife before he went down. So he wasn't going to leave her up there without something of her own to protect herself with should something occur. And so he armed her before he went outside.
Gotcha.
Right? And now a couple of things though too. One is I personally wouldn't recommend pursuing.
That was a bad idea.
I wouldn't recommend searching and going out. Now, we don't know the setup. I mean, you can see on the video, this is a large property. I don't know. I mean, apparently there are multiple entrances. Maybe if his kids were on a different part of the home to where this person was accessing an area of the home that the kids could have been. I mean, there's reasons where I can see where it might be legitimately a reason to do so. But if you don't have a reason for safety of yourself or your family, stuff is stuff. This is Florida too. Florida's a little bit different than California law.
But going down the hall to make sure your kids are safe is one thing, but going out into a courtyard and pursuing somebody who's leaving,
that's not so good, especially here in California. Again, Florida's a little bit different.
Yeah, we don't have we don't have the full story, but I can't imagine that's ever a good idea.
That's what I was saying. I'm not sure of the layout and the design of the home. I don't know if the kids are younger, if they're older. Maybe they have kind of separate wings of the home that they're in. I don't know. That's one thing that wasn't really clear. But if when we go outside to proactively go out and make someone change their mind or to leave our property in California, that can be a bit of a problem if we do it with the firearm. Right. We have castle doctrine in California, but castle doctrine doesn't apply to your property. It applies to the structure of your home. Right. So
do we know when he called 911?
It doesn't state. We don't know.
When should he have called 911?
I would highly recommend before you even
immediately
before you do anything else, right? Get help started on the way. That's a good question. We don't know.
Okay.
I don't know, but things he did well. Video camera system was in place, and he used it. Right? You can have it, but then if you fail to check it, what good does it do you? So check it and see. And then he had the firearm accessible and available, and he did happen to have multiple, one for him and one for his wife. I think that's a great idea. Anybody who's a sane, moral, prudent person that's able to safely handle a firearm, absolutely. And at legal age, right? Absolutely. And, you got to take into consideration, do I shelter in place? And he made the choice to go out. I don't know that I'd recommend that. Yeah. You got to kind of take those into consideration. But
fortunately, everybody was safe.
Everybody was safe. And they did catch the guy.
And they caught the guy.
I don't know if they got the yogurt back, though.
Grand theft yogurt.
Was it strawberry? I don't know.
I don't know. What's your favorite? I like the pineapple.
I'm not a big yogurt fan in general.
Is pineapple allowed in yogurt? Or is it like same people that don't like it on pizza? They don't like it in yogurt?
Well, I like it on pizza.
I like it on pizza too. So there
you go.
And yogurt. All right. Well, there you go. All right. That is your curtain call. Sponsored by Cargo. Check them out. Thank them. Be a good customer. Okay, we're talking to a longtime Gun Owners Radio friend. He's been on a number of times. We're always happy to talk to him. Jim Bellinger from Paragraph 2, which is up in the Inland Empire. He is a firearms instructor extraordinaire. Jim, how you doing?
Good, Michael. How are you?
Good, man. It's good to see you. Thanks for joining us again.
Great to be here. It's always fun.
So what I wanted to kick it off with is I was just talking to Alicia, and she was talking about there was an event in Rahagi's.
Yeah.
How did that go?
It went fantastic. We had like almost 4,000 people there with all the kids and everything. Everybody had a great time. It was so much fun. The place was packed. It was really, really a good time. We do everything. We have like world champion jet ski guys doing flips and the guy sailing in the air, and we've got their climbing walls, BMX bikes, guys doing flips. The kids just have a great time.
Wait.
And then we gave away 600 fishing poles.
Wait. Jet skis? I know they have like that little pond where they actually stock it with fish.
Yeah.
They put a jet ski in that?
And the guy does flips and everything.
That's awesome. And this was Rahagi's. It was like it was for children, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah, it's called our Youth Adventure, and we've had to kind of retitle it after the laws and everything, but we do it every year,
Yeah.
and it's huge success. Just really fun.
Nice. Now, what was your part? What did you do there?
Myself and my good friend Donnie, we handle security at the front gate.
Oh, cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, we have to be careful who we let in, who we don't let in. Certain individuals come with like a cute puppy and no kid. They don't get in.
Jeez. Did you have to turn anybody away? Were there any problems, or was it all pretty straightforward?
I'd probably not really want to comment on that.
Fair enough. Well, I'm glad everybody had fun. Rahagi's is wonderful. It's kind of legendary, frankly. I can't imagine if you're anywhere near the gun community in Southern California, you've heard of Rahagi's. I've shot sporting clays there. I went to did a demonstration. Who makes the Galil? The Israeli company.
IDBI?
Yeah. They had a demonstration there. I got to shoot a Galil. I got to shoot a Jericho in their bays there. But Rahagi's is phenomenal. It's just like Disneyland for guns.
It is.
It's a great facility. Yeah, I went out.
Well, at least you and I had a good time.
I know. I was just saying, Jim helped facilitate. I took a youth group up there a few months back, and Jim was great, and the facility was great. It was wonderful.
What was the youth group?
I just, I homeschool my own kids.
Yeah.
And I kind of have, I'm kind of in that homeschool community, and I had a homeschool group up there in Riverside. I do something similar down here in San Diego, and they opened up like a sister location up in Riverside, like a little co-op. And they were looking for someone to take their youth out there to get them, some gun safety training. And I was looking for a facility up in the area, and I reached out to Jim, and he was wonderful. With open arms up and welcomed us up there.
Jim is wonderful, man.
Yeah.
Jim, every time there is a need in the community, whether, for instructors or for Second Amendment, political, whatever it is, you are ready to go. I know you have this huge goal of you want to certify how many instructors in
Over 500.
You want to get to 500.
What are you at now?
Like 428.
Okay, so we got to find you what 72 more
That's it,
people.
Yeah, and I got 14 already signed up, so it's going to happen this year. So.
Wow. Now, by the way, before we get too far off, is Rahagi's? Are they going to use? Is that an option for the Olympics? Have you heard anything about that?
They use Prado, which is right kind of across the way from us. They've used them as an Olympic facility before. So again, we're kind of landlocked by a lot of different things. We can't really put that many people in. I'm working with the sheriff's department on doing a CCW event, and they need 5,000 people. We just can't even park that many cars here. So
wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So what are you most excited about? It feels like there's a lot going on in California, in San Diego, and then nationally when it comes to guns. And, it's never enough. We still have a long way to go. There's a lot of lawsuits that have to be won. There's a lot of elections that need to be won. What are you most excited about with just on the good news side of the Second Amendment?
The most I'm excited about is my sheriff, Chad Bianco. I hope he wins. I'll do anything I can to help him win.
He's running for governor.
Governor, yeah. And I mean, I'd miss him horribly as a sheriff, and I'm going to lose him that way. But this guy gets it. And, nobody's perfect. We all think we pick on people and they said this or said that. But he's just a good man. He really is a good man. And I'm really excited about anything I can do to help him.
Yeah, he's been on the show a couple times, and he I got to tell you, I have said before he's my favorite elected official, and I am constantly disappointed, Jim, by elected officials. Constantly disappointed. I mean, you spend enough time, and you just kind of, oh my gosh, it's so easy to get jaded. I don't have a lot of favorite elected officials, but Chad is Sheriff Bianco is head and shoulders above. He really does He's this great balance of common sense and principle. He's pragmatic but still principled, and it's just such a rare find.
Yeah, he even in this craziness of the CCW world right now with out of the state CCWs being offered. He's like champion that over everybody.
Yeah.
And I'm very fortunate because I got put on the list to do the out of state stuff. And they've got a program that they've laid in there, and they're going after it. They're really getting real serious. Where the other guys are kind of, let's hold back, let's wait, let's see what's happening. And he's always proactive. That's maybe why we have 53,000 or whatever, CCW holders, everybody else, Orange County, San Bernardino, 23,000. It's always been his program, and he's always about us standing up for our rights.
And he dug in early.
He just makes it special.
Yeah,
Pardon
and he dug in early. I mean, it was right out of the gate. The guy had barely, warmed the seat of sheriff when he got elected, and he said, "Hey, we're fixing this thing." Unapologetically dedicated.
Yeah, and some of the people, they're kind of revamping things and stuff, and some of the people are going out and doing consulting, and there's other agencies just going, "Hey, send your guys over and teach us," because they want to learn how to handle it better.
Mm-hmm.
And many guys send people to Riverside just to learn how to handle it quicker and better here in California. So,
yeah.
And he's reaching out and helping people.
Hey, so Jim, one of the things we're going to talk about on the show today is we're going to talk about the riots that happened, the ICE riots that happened over the last week or so, 2 weeks. What are your thoughts? What are some lessons learned, or, what are your impressions of what's going on?
Yeah, great question. They're sad. We've lost our country. We're not losing it. We've lost it. I get excited when I listen to a sheriff from Florida say, "Hey, you loot something, you're going to get shot." And I don't want anybody to ever get shot. But what I want to do is people to be law-abiding citizens. And I've been telling people in my classes, in Vancouver, I think it's Canada, they, in the last 4 years, 60 people represent 80% of the crime.
60.
So again,
Wait. In Vancouver, there are 60 people, not 60%, but there are 60 people. And they commit 80% of the crime in that one city.
Yes.
Wow.
That's phenomenal.
In a 4-year period.
I don't think that's unique either, by the way. That's not unique to them. That's a very that's a common story in a lot of municipalities.
And last night I was at a legal thing that Casey Castillo put on. She's with out of Lake Elsinore, and they're talking about all this stuff, and I'm going, wait a second. If somebody comes into my home and I have to wait till they punch me in the face and I can decide to, at what level I'm going to defend myself, we have the wrong officials elected. We just 100% have the wrong people in the wrong places. And again, all the politicians, I mean, our current governor, I mean, they don't make any sense. They literally are trying to destroy, and they have done an excellent job of destroying California. We are a trash can. And again, in the riot situation, just like Pacific Palisades, when it burnt, they want to be this smart city. They want the Olympics to get done. They're way behind in doing this. The Olympics are going to pull out. They're not going to come here. They can't even give them any security. So again, LA is just literally destroying everything that's good about California. And
I don't think that's an understatement. LA is destroying everything that's good about California. I would lump in San Francisco too. I think San Francisco and LA are destroying everything that's good about California. And I don't think that's hyperbole. I think that that's a provable, fact.
I was teaching a class last week, and I looked at just the CCW holders in the room. There's like 32 of them. Mm-hmm. And I said, look, you're the special people of this country. Mm-hmm. You decide to get up every day, come back here and renew every 2 years, put a gun on your waist, and walk around. You're the leaders. You're more of a leader than any politician we have. You are willing to take risks for yourself to defend and help yourself and other people. Most people won't walk across the street to throw water on you if you're on fire. And I mean most people, politicians. So these people that are our CCW holders, these to me are the real, doors of light in the United States of America. They're going to make the difference. They're going to be the leaders, and they've got to step up, and we've got to vote. And I challenge them every meeting I ever have, every class. you guys got to go out and make a difference.
There you go. I agree with you, Jim. Jim, thank you so much for taking the time and joining us today. If people want to train with you, if they want to take a class from you, if they want to be one of the 500 certified instructors that you're shooting for, how do they find you? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Best way to get a hold of me is at paragraph2.net. That's the word paragraph, the number 2.net. And I'm all over the place there.
Good. Jim Bellinger, paragraph2.net. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time, man.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Jim.
Take care. Bye-bye. Bye, Alicia.
All right, it's time for everybody's favorite segment, Stump My Nephew. We found out years ago that my nephew Sam is extremely good when it comes to gun trivia. He's very knowledgeable. So if you write in, if you send us a question that has to do with guns, Second Amendment, whatever, and we use it on the air, then you're going to get a hat or a shirt. And if you stump my nephew, which good luck with that, you are going to get a special prize, a very special prize. So this segment's sponsored by Seal One, seal1.com, Seal One and Done. This is a really cool quick tip to save you time and money and headaches at the cleaning bench. Ditch the 3-step system and switch to Seal One. It's the all-in-one CLP that actually works. All you do is wipe it on and wipe it off, and your gun is cleaned and lubricated without all the greasy residue. Just wipe it off completely, and you're good to go. One product, one step, total confidence. Seal One. Try it today. Grab yours at seal1.com. One and done with Seal One. Okay, Sam, how you doing, bud?
I'm well. How are you guys?
Good. I'm good. How are you, Alicia?
I'm doing pretty fantastic.
That's awesome. All right, I think we have a really good. I think this is a good question. Alicia, why don't you
All right.
fire it up?
All right, Sam, I got a question for you. So the question is, and it's from William J. from Oceanside. He asks, it had an aluminum alloy barrel, a range of around 350 yards, and an onomatopoeia.
Onomatopoeia.
Thank you. Nickname. What is the firearm that was used extensively in Vietnam, developed as a possible replacement of the bazooka?
So it had an aluminum alloy barrel, a range of around 350 yards, and an onomatopoeia nickname. What is the firearm that was used extensively in Vietnam, developed as a possible replacement for the bazooka? What do you got?
That was written in by William J. from what, Oceanside?
Yeah.
Correct.
Thanks very much for writing in. You know what? I'm not even going to give that a try. He's got me. He got me good.
Wait. Let's back up. So
What?
That's not Sam-like.
It's not. Let's back up here.
Yeah,
So,
that's a tough one.
okay. So Vietnam, right? Vietnam era.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Developed as a replacement for the bazooka. Okay.
Yeah.
Alloy barrel, not really a big giveaway. Range of 350 yards.
Well, wait. So does he specify in what capacity it was intended to replace the bazooka?
No, but the
Well, no, don't say no, but don't say no, but don't give me any hints. I want to get this fair and square. If I
well,
do
no, but
get it.
I just want to read the onomatopoeia nickname. I think is the biggest giveaway. The onomatopoeia nickname.
See, the reason I asked if he specified in what capacity it was intended to replace the bazooka is because the M79 grenade launcher, commonly called the thumper or the bloop gun or the bloop tube or various variations on that, wasn't really an anti-tank weapon like the bazooka was. It didn't have any significant anti-armor capability. It was more intended to provide some level of indirect fire ability at the squad level, kind of like a man-portable mortar, and that was how squad leaders directed their grenadiers to use them. It wasn't something you would use to. I don't know if that's what William J. was talking about, but that's about the only Vietnam era U.S. firearm or weapon of any kind I can think of that had an onomatopoeia name.
Okay, so your answer is M79?
Yeah, I'll just go with M79.
Okay,
I don't think that's it, but
so you know how I'm notoriously bad at researching. When somebody makes a claim on these questions, I just go, we'll figure it out. I actually did look into it because I thought replacement for the bazooka. What I found, and I'm pretty sure what they were referring to, is after World War II, they said, hey, you know what, this bazooka thing's not quite doing what we want it to do, so we're going to see if we can figure out some kind of replacement for this bazooka. What you say is absolutely accurate, but what he is saying is that the M79 came out of that development. So they were looking to replace the bazooka. This wasn't a replacement for the bazooka, but as a result of developing something to replace the bazooka, they came up with the M79 grenade launcher, aka the bloop gun, which of course is onomatopoeia. Which I thought I thought that was like a pasta sauce, like some kind of Italian, you know what I mean? Have you ever had like a really good onomatopoeia sauce, and mix that over some spaghetti or something? Yeah, there you go. Anyway, what do you got, Sam? What do you think of the M79? What else do you know about the M79?
Well, I admittedly am not extremely familiar with the exact chronology of its development process. I know that there was a lot of development work on 40 millimeter grenade launchers in a U.S. military context during the Vietnam War. And some of the stuff that came out of that, one item was the M79. Another result was the M203 underbarrel grenade launcher, which was designed to be used with the M16 and later the M4. And there was a lot of experimentation with integrating a grenade launcher into a rifle. So Project SPEW was a U.S. Army development program to replace the M14 and the M16 with this new high-tech whiz-bang space-age type of weapon. The M16 was only meant as an interim solution, pretty much, until Project SPEW reached its conclusion. Well, spoiler alert, it never did, and the M16 persisted. But I have looked at some of the prototypes that were used in that program while I was researching for other stuff unrelated. And I'll just say this, I understand for weight and balance reasons why built-in grenade launchers never really got off the ground. Have you ever wanted to replace your 7-pound M16A1 with something that weighs as much as a belt-fed machine gun and has all the weight balanced out front, all for the capability of being able to fire grenades? I don't think most people would take that trade. Now, admittedly, I'm not an infantryman, never have been, but my understanding is that virtually every military that has fielded grenade launchers in large numbers has made them detachable for a reason.
Yeah, makes sense. I think it just looks cool. The M203, hanging out under the barrel. I got to tell you, I was always partial. If I was going to put something under my AR's barrel, it'd be a shotgun. And I got that, of course, directly from Billy on Predator. You remember that? No? Any Predator movie fans out there? Billy was the big Native American dude that was fighting with Schwarzenegger.
Right.
And he said crickets. Did I just get crickets for a Predator reference? That's horrible. Anyway, he had a Remington shotgun underneath his AR, and I always thought that was cool. So, all right, good job. You nailed it. You got it right. This was a really good question.
I like how you didn't let him get away with just giving up.
Yeah.
Because he knows it.
Well, this was good. It was a good question because it was informative, and it took a couple of turns, Like, he definitely tried to throw him off by the whole replacement of a bazooka, because it wasn't a replacement. That was what it tried to be. That's where it came from, but it wasn't and isn't a replacement for a bazooka. The onomatopoeia, that's kind of a fun little piece of it. This was a really good. William J. from Oceanside, you did a good job crafting this question.
Now, if you do find yourself stuck in, not exactly Vietnam era, but just after Vietnam, if you do find yourself stuck in the 1970s and you need some organic anti-armor capability for your rifle squad, I highly recommend the M47 Dragon. That was a real proper replacement for the bazooka, though admittedly a couple of decades late. But that's what the U.S. Army and the U.S. Marine Corps were using before the. I think that was directly replaced by the Javelin, but that's your proper bazooka replacement. If you're like, I'm worried about tanks, and it's 1970s.
Okay. All right, good.
Good to know.
Awesome job, Sam. Thank you so much. Appreciate you as always. Thanks for joining us, and good job getting yet another question correct. The bloop gun. Onomatopoeia. Thanks, Sam. Let's go to the Shoot You Straight segment. This is our Shoot You Straight segment where we talk about today's hottest gun and political topics. No bull, just shooting you straight. So I've got two things to talk about. The first thing is I want to quickly talk about David Hogg, everybody's favorite anti-gun guy. I just want to quickly recap because I'm seeing a lot of people make fun of him, and that's necessary. If you're a pro-gun, if you're a gun activist, you're a gun owner, and you haven't taken your turn at making fun of David Hogg, now's the time. This is your engraved invitation. Go make fun of David Hogg. So as you know, this guy, he, anti-gun activist, he gets out of college. He goes and gets himself elected onto the Democratic National Committee as a roving vice president or something like that. He's on their in their leadership team.
Must not have been much competition.
Well, there probably wasn't, to be honest with you. But I think his name ID, and he kind of got all fired up or whatever, and they saw him as youth, or for whatever reason he got on. Mm-hmm. That was back in January. Boom, he's all excited, and then there was some pushback, and the DNC said, "We don't care. This guy's our youth. He's our future." And then he started. Basically, he's a part of a national PAC. He has his own national PAC that has raised hundreds of thousands and I think millions at this point. And he said, hey, by the way, while I'm on the DNC, whose entire purpose and job is to get Democrats elected, I'm going to go use my PAC against elected Democrats and try to make sure that in the primary elections, the most extreme, most anti-gun Democrats get elected over the incumbents. And the DNC started going, I don't know if we like this guy anymore. So they undid the election. They basically said, you know what? We're going to undo this election. We're just going to reverse course because, by the way, of course, they're the Democratic Party, right? They're all about democracy, unless, of course, it comes to, elections. Then all of a sudden they're not so fond. Mm-hmm. They come up with ridiculous crap like super delegates and, by the way, we're going to redo the election. Everything falls apart. So Hogg decides he's not going to run again. He's just done. He takes his ball and he goes home. Now, I got to tell you, the Democratic Party right now is going through some hard times. And it's easy to celebrate without thinking of the future. This could change on a dime. Right now, there aren't a lot of people that are excited about the Democrats. They don't have charismatic leadership. Most of their leadership right now is very extreme. They've lost a lot of donors. They're really, truly kind of lost in the woods. But they still have half of Congress, half the House of Representatives, half the Senate are Democrats. They still control big states like California, New York, New Jersey, Illinois. I'm happy to see that they're suffering. They have gotten so extreme in the last 10, 15 years that they deserve everything that they're getting. The chickens have come home to roost. But I caution, this is not the time to, say, well, our job here is done. David Hogg is gone. The DNC is suffering. Now is the time to get even more active. This is an opportunity. This is not the end of the story. This is an opportunity to advance the plot. And I think that people who are counting David Hogg as being gone are going to find that they're sorely mistaken. This guy is still going to be relevant. And the reason he is relevant, because he can raise money. He's raising hundreds of thousands and even millions. And that's why he's going to continue to be relevant. And that should be a lesson for all of us. That I've said before, there are only two tools you have in the toolbox when it comes to politics, and that's people and money. And if you're not raising people and you're not raising money, if you're not organizing to get people to do things that are effective, if you're not getting people to give more to causes, then you're failing miserably. You're not actually moving the ball forward. Those are the only two things that matter in politics. Great ideas, if they're funded, great. If they're not funded, they fall flat. Bad ideas, if they're funded, they get implemented. If they're not funded, then they go away. So I think it's great that David Hogg is suffering, and his political career seems to be, seems to have fallen off a cliff. I'm glad that the DNC is suffering due to the bad decisions they've made in the past decade and a half or so, or whatever, however far you want to go back. But this is not the time to rest on our laurels and say, hey, look, the gun lobby is, we don't have to do anything now. All our problems are solved. Trump's in office, Supreme Court, blah, 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 blah. Organizations like Firearms Policy Coalition are having a lot of good results in the courts. NRA is back, Sandy County Gun Owners is doing a great job locally. There's a lot of really good things happening, but now is not the time to sit back and watch them happen. Now is the time to get involved. So I just wanted to bring everybody up to date on what exactly is going on with Mr. Hogg. Don't count him out. That's a mistake for the amateurs. Make sure, it's good that he's failing, but this, this could be just a way for him to usher in further success. And if we just sit by and watch, that's exactly what he'll do. Okay, our next subject is somebody wrote in and brought this to my attention. I'd heard a little bit about it. We've talked about already a little bit the ICE riots that have happened in the last week. And one of our listeners brought this to my attention. There was actually a shooting that happened in Utah during one of the ICE riots. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the shooting, and then I wanted to talk about where, as 2A activists, should we be on the issue of immigration and how charged up the issue is right now, and the riots and demonstrations and marches. Should we be supportive? Should we be not supportive? Where should we be on this? But let's start with this shooting. Do we have video for this, Richard? Okay, let's start with the video. Here's the video for the
We reached out
shooting.
to Salt Lake City Police to ask them about this video you're going to see and what it might change for Arturo Gamboa. He's the man being held in jail on suspicion of murder. You're going to see Gamboa dressed in black, but you don't see him raise his rifle, and he doesn't run toward the crowd until the shooting already starts. It's just a few frames, recorded as someone was panning their camera to make a video of Saturday's protest. Fox 13 News spoke to the person who took the video. Then we zoomed in and slowed down the footage. The people in yellow? Volunteer peacekeepers for 5051, the group who organized the No Canes March. They appear to have raised pistols into a firing position. There's Gamboa, dressed in black. This jail booking statement, citing the peacekeepers, says Arturo then lifted the rifle and began to run toward the large crowd gathered on State Street, holding the rifle in a firing position. But in the video, Arturo's rifle barrel appears to be aimed down, and Arturo doesn't start running until the volunteer starts shooting. How Arturo was holding the rifle could be a factor in determining whether criminal charges were filed against the peacekeeper, says attorney Mitch Velos, who has written books about Utah gun laws.
But if you have a reasonable belief that you're in the act of stopping a forcible felony, then you may be justified. Of course, it depends on all the circumstances, whether or not the AR-15 was raised and pointed at someone versus being held at what they call low ready. I think that's going to be an issue in this case.
The new video does not show the shooting of Afa Alu. Police have said he was a bystander hit by a bullet meant for Gamboa. The peacekeepers were volunteering for the protest organizers. 5051 issued a statement Tuesday. The safety volunteer who responded to the individual and who was questioned by police is a military veteran. We are mourning Afa Alu with everything we have, and we are holding his family and our friends in our hearts. At this time, SLCPD has not chosen to charge any of the volunteers. Representatives of 5051 declined to say more. The volunteer's name has not been disclosed. A Salt Lake City police spokesman declined an interview request or to speak about specific evidence.
Okay.
He said detectives are focused on, quote,
So what the heck's going on here? Right? It's very confusing. And as I explain it, you're going to see just how confusing it is. Now, I want to make clear, I'm not an attorney. I don't have firsthand knowledge of this. We don't know everything about this shooting. In fact, I was debating on whether or not I even wanted to talk about this because we just don't have enough information. But I want to comment on as much of it as I can. But full disclosure, this might completely change. There might be a piece of evidence that comes out that completely changes everything. So I'm just going by as little as we think we know right now. But here is the gist of the situation. So there was an anti-ICE demonstration or an federal immigration enforcement demonstration on the No Kings Day that you probably heard about. This was in Salt Lake City. So you had this big group of people that were clearly marching down the street. The organizers put together a volunteer group called the Peacekeepers, and they were just wearing a high-vis jacket, and a lot of them were armed. Now, the reason that they had this group is that they are also fairly anti-law enforcement. So there were a lot of the same people that were defunded the police are now organizing this demonstration against federal law enforcement. So they said, hey, we don't want cops. We're just going to get volunteers, and we're going to make sure that they're armed, okay? There was also a guy in the demonstration. He was not there to disrupt. He was there to participate in the demonstration. He was dressed all in black, and he was open carrying an AR pattern rifle. He was in the in the march. Okay, at some point, one of the peacekeepers, one of this volunteer security in the high vis, at least one of them, and I think multiple, saw the guy open carrying the AR and shot towards him 3 times. And the reason I say shot towards him is because one bullet barely grazed him, and the other bullet found a completely, totally innocent bystander, a guy that was there marching, was passionate about the issue or whatever, but wasn't armed, wasn't carrying, wasn't rioting, wasn't doing anything but marching. And this volunteer security guard's bullet found him and killed him. Now, here's where it gets crazy. So who was arrested? Well, the person that was arrested was the guy who was open carrying the AR who was shot at. There's no evidence to show, and certainly no proof, that the guy with the AR did anything violent or any kind of aggressive activity or anything like that. Nothing shows that he was pointing his AR, that he was threatening, that he was doing anything other than marching and openly carrying an AR. They arrested him because of what's called a felony murder. Now, what is a felony murder? It sounds like, well, that's a murder that's also a felony. Well, the felony murder is a very specific term that means that if you're committing a felony and it results in someone dying, then you could be charged with murder even if you had nothing directly to do with the murder. One of the most common examples is, let's say that you and a buddy decide to go rob a bank and you're driving the getaway car. So you drive up, your buddy gets out, goes into the bank, you stay with the car, and while the guy robs the bank, he kills somebody and then comes back out, jumps in the car, and you drive him away. You didn't even get out of the car. But driving a getaway car for a bank robbery is a felony, and because that felony was committed, someone died, that is considered a felony murder. And even though you weren't armed, you didn't shoot anybody, you didn't kill anybody, because you're committing a felony and someone died as a result of it, that's a felony murder. So they're saying that this guy that was carrying the AR pattern rifle was committing a felony, and someone died, therefore he is now being convicted or being charged with a murder. Now, he was obviously hauled off to the hospital. Now, that's crazy number one. Crazy number two is the guy who shot the 3 bullets hasn't been charged at all. Police have completely left him alone. I think they're still investigating, but they're basically saying, hey, this guy hasn't done anything wrong that we can find. At least he hasn't been charged yet. That might change right now. It might change tomorrow. It might change next week. But as of right now, that guy's walking free. In fact, they haven't even identified him publicly that I could find because, they're afraid of, obviously, consequences. So that whole thing is crazy. Now, you can open carry an AR. Before we get into kind of the analysis part, we're going to talk about two things. We have to talk about it in two different ways. What we know, or at least understand to be legal, we're not legal professionals. Alicia and I neither one of us are attorneys. So we're just going to give you the best information that we have, but it can't be completely and totally relied upon, but still. So we're going to talk about the legality of it. We're also going to be talking about best practices or worst practices. So legally, I couldn't find anything. It appears to be completely and totally legal to open carry an AR in Salt Lake City.
The only thing I'm finding is that it must be unloaded. Not that that's super relevant at this point.
Okay.
I'm looking at.
So it's unloaded open carry must be in Salt Lake City. I wasn't able to find that.
Yeah, I've got it's code 53-5A-102.2.
I believe the felony that they're saying he committed, though, is that they're taking the word of the peacekeepers that he was pointing his AR at people, which there's actually evidence to the contrary. So they're saying that's the felony he committed. So I was asked by a listener, hey, we want you to weigh in on this. And again, it's tough to weigh in on a lot of this because there's still the fog of war. We don't know exactly what's happened. There's still a lot of unanswered questions. It's been about a week now, but still a lot of unanswered questions. So
really quickly, I apologize. Sure. I need to make a correction before you get too far, and I forget. Sure. I was incorrect. 18 to 21 unloaded and can be open carried. 21 and up can be loaded or unloaded on a public street or in any other place not prohibited by or pursuant to a state statute or federal law.
Okay, so that's everything I saw is that the open carry that he was performing seems to not be illegal. It seems to be completely and totally legal. He didn't break a law by carrying around an AR. So he didn't break a law by carrying around an AR. That wasn't a law that he broke. So that's the legality of it. Let's talk about the best practice. I know there are going to be people, typing away in the comments section or screaming at their whatever. He has the right to do that. He can do it. He absolutely has the First Amendment right to go assemble, to protest, to walk down the street and say, hey, government, I disagree. He absolutely has the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms while he exercises his First Amendment right. I just don't know if that was a great idea. Not in this context. And it just, and I'm willing to bet that you don't think it's a great idea either because you've never done it. None of you, or at least few of you, very few of you, have shown up at a political demonstration that they're expecting could possibly, turn violent with your AR slung as you walk. They say don't do stupid things at stupid times and stupid places with stupid people or whatever, right?
Right.
Is this a stupid thing to do at a stupid time in a stupid place?
I would say it is, in my opinion.
I don't think it's a good idea. The other side of that is a demonstration like that, a march, a protest, a rally, never does any good. It's never been effective. We actually go out of our way to say, hey, we don't do marches, rallies, and protests. We don't do marches, rallies, and protests because they don't get anything done. And far too often, they actually make you look even worse. So they actually move you in the wrong direction. If you're telling me, hey, I'm going to go show up at a march or a rally or a protest, I say that's fine. You have the right. But is that the best use of your time? Now, if you tell me that you're going to go to a press conference or you're going to go to a fundraiser or you're going to walk a precinct for a candidate to help them get elected, that is effective activism. That actually changes public policy. That gets people elected. That helps move the ball forward. So not only do I think that going to a march or a rally or a protest, probably a bad idea, although you have the right, carrying a firearm openly to a bad idea makes a bad idea even worse. Now, that being said, I don't understand why this peacekeeper hasn't been charged yet. He fired 3 bullets, killed somebody that he wasn't even intending to kill. You know, there's no defense. He wasn't making any kind of claim that the person he actually killed was doing anything aggressively, and this guy remains free. That's ridiculous. Now, I think that in the future, if you do show up at press conferences, if you do show up at fundraisers, if you do walk precincts and neighborhoods for elected officials, and 5 or 10 years down the road, we have changed public policy, and therefore we have changed culture, and people don't look suspiciously at somebody who's openly carrying at a protest, you know, then maybe it's a good idea. But, you know, if evaluating things right now, I just think it just didn't end up doing anything right, you know. Now, again, this wasn't even, both these guys were on the same page. They were both on the same team, and this guy still shot at him. You know, he was not trying to disrupt the march. He was there to be a part of the march, and he still got shot. And well, he got shot at, and somebody else got killed. You know, the guy still shot at people that were on his side, you know. So as far as the legality of it, you know, it looks like the guy that shot if for any other situation, I got to tell you, what if it was an actual police officer? First off, if it was a police officer, this wouldn't have happened. They got these volunteer wannabes, you know, who don't understand what they should be doing or how to defend people, and boom, somebody got shot and killed. No surprise. I don't think a police officer would have made this mistake. Maybe they would have made another mistake. But they wouldn't have made this mistake, number one. But if a police officer did the exact same thing, do you think that their statement would be the same? No way. They'd try to hang this guy. And if it were any other different situation, the guy that shot somebody unintentionally and killed him would be in cuffs and would be in jail. Period. Full stop. End of story. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this? Do you have any question? Did I leave anything out? I mean, there's a lot of unanswered questions, a lot of details we don't know. But what are your thoughts on the general situation?
I mean, you know, you and I didn't pre-talk about this, but one thing that as you were reading, you know, we watched the video, kind of talking about it. I mean, I don't know if this is where you wanted to go with this or not, but one thing that came up for me in my mind is Rittenhouse, like the whole idea of I mean, granted that the circumstances are slightly different, you know, the peaceful versus not, there's different things that play a role in that. But one thing we got to think about is the legalities. Was he legally able to have the right? Yes, he was. We got to take the emotion out of it, right? You got to look at the law. Was these people that were there that were kind of tasked with being like security, right?
The peacekeepers,
right? They're going to still be held. And actually, I didn't get deep into it enough to really have enough knowledge yet to speak on it. But I was just trying to look up Utah law and Utah law in this aspect, and it's legalese. It'll take me a while to get through it, but were they justified in what they did according to Utah law?
Everything I have heard and said and seen, I don't understand why that guy's not in cuffs.
Absolutely, I have to agree. Based on what I'm reading and seeing, I absolutely agree. And like you said, they were both on the same side.
They're both on the same side.
Responded out of fear.
Yeah.
He didn't have the skills or the knowledge or the
experience.
The experience, and that's what I think a lot of it comes down to, is the experience would teach you to kind of process things and to respond more appropriately, potentially.
Yeah.
And it just seemed like he responded just out of fear, and it was rash.
I think you're right. Now, again, we don't have all the details, and I think some things are going to continue to develop on this, but that's the initial, and I think we'll talk about this at a later date when things do continue. But this brings me on, I want to quickly touch on, we as Second Amendment activists, what do we want to do with this whole ICE situation and the protests and the rallies and the violence and everything? Where should we be on this? Should we weigh in, you know? One of the pros is, hey, they're fighting against, what they say is an overreaching federal government. They want to get rid of ICE the same way we want to get rid of ATF, right? Is that something we should relate to and get involved with? On the other hand, the federal government right now is on our side. We've talked about almost every week there's some kind of new thing that the federal government is doing under the Trump administration and in Congress that's saying, hey, you know what? We're finally pro Second Amendment. We're finally doing things in favor of the Second Amendment. But, does that still, I mean, we want even more people to be clearly in this demonstration, there were some gun owners. Do we want this to be a big tent and then say, hey, this is an opportunity for us to recruit like-minded people. Maybe they aren't fully sold on Second Amendment, but maybe this is an opportunity to bring them in and explain to them that, hey, this is why gun ownership and the Second Amendment is important. But the problem with that is they've never been on our side. The issue of immigration, you've never seen an immigration group stand up for the Second Amendment, despite the fact that I would argue most, if not all, the people that are, coming to this country either illegally or legally are here, at least in part, not just for economic reasons, but to embrace the rights that we all supposedly are protected by our federal government. But they've never been on our side. In fact, I'd argue that a lot of them have worked against us. A lot of the people that are being deported have some kind of violent law that they've broken. And that's why they're being deported, not just because they're here illegally, but they're being prioritized because they've done something horrible. Is that something? They've never been on our side. Why would we want to, reach out and say, hey, even though involvement's always good, like I said, these rallies and protests and marches, just not effective. It's just it paints everybody in a bad light. If you look over the past 5 years, how many violent protests have there been? And the majority of them have been on the left side of the political spectrum. There were the BLM riots, and but what do they always do? They always point to January 6th. And it doesn't matter what your explanation is. Well, there were plants, and well, this happened, and well, the media, whatever. They're using it against us. They're using it against gun owners. I got multiple phone calls from media saying, after, like on January 7th, basically saying, hey, we want to interview you. We want to know if any of your members were there. They just automatically assumed it was projected onto us that we were, a part of that we were somehow, that extremist. So I think that there is a huge advantage to staying focused on pure Second Amendment issues as an activist. I think that the real thing to do is to not take your eye off the ball and continue to work on Second Amendment issues and completely leave alone, these other dividing issues. I remember being very unhappy when there were some national Second Amendment organizations maybe 5-10 years ago that really took some positions on immigration and the illegal immigration, and I thought that's not. I don't want to get into that fight. I want to continue to fight for the Second Amendment. In fact, I think the Second Amendment expansion and protection of Second Amendment will solve a lot of problems. Will solve a lot of issues, both in the courtroom and on Main Street. So I think that remaining pure is probably a really, really good idea. So I've heard some people talk about like, well, hey, gee, don't Second Amendment folks have a lot in common with what's going on with these illegal immigration demonstrations and riots? And I don't think we have much in common at all. I think we should stay away from this toxic group of violent amateurs, as much as we possibly can. There is no advantage. They don't ever seem to have our interests at heart. There's no evidence that they ever have. As long as I've been in the state of California, from the 90s till today, I've never seen immigration embrace Second Amendment. In fact, more often I've seen them abuse and work against it. And this story out of Utah is a perfect example. So I don't know. Am I off base, Alicia? How am I doing?
No, I absolutely agree.
Completely agree.
That's it.
Okay. Well, as we find out more about what's going on with Salt Lake City, we will let you know. But expect us, in general, to stay away from this, issue in practice as we possibly can. This ain't our issue. These aren't these activists are not, activists that we're looking to recruit and embrace. They certainly just do not seem to have our interest at heart. In fact, they seem to be the complete opposite of what we're trying to accomplish. So there you go. Okay, that is our show. I want to talk one one last thing. The Pew Pew Crew. It's Gun Owners Radio's membership program. It gives you behind the scenes content for members only content that's designed just for the Pew Pew Crew, exclusive perks, all kinds of really cool things. We're building it more and more each week. What it does is it helps us grow the show, and it helps us reach into other circles of influence and contact people who don't know anything about Gun Owners Radio. There are a lot of gun owners out there who need to get involved, who need to be better educated, who need to be more active when it comes to Second Amendment activism, and that's what Gun Owners Radio is trying to do. A very easy way for you to help us is join the Pew Pew Crew. All you got to do is go to youtube.com/gunownersradio and click on the join button, and you can be a member of the Pew Pew Crew. So there you go. That's your show. Thanks for listening. Appreciate you all. Stay safe, get trained, get involved. Do a little bit more this year than you did last year. And tell everybody you know about us. Don't forget to subscribe and comment and share, and let the whole world know about Gun Owners Radio.